Hey everyone, welcome back to Evony with Genghis. So we're on server 68-136 right now. Why are we here? Well, we got a special interview today with one of the OG Evony players, WARZILLA, true legend, one of the original greats. When we merged with this server, we merged with this server February 25th, 2021, and we were about a year and a half old, and this server was about 5 years old. So anyways, when we merged, WARZILLA was, I remember he was like a 4.5 billion rogue, no alliance, ran the show on the server. 4.5 billion doesn't sound like much now, but back then there was only 2-3 people on servers that were that size. He was the third biggest on the server. This is actually 3 servers. This is 68, 90, and 136. So that would explain why there was 3 keeps that size. And I remember you could go back to some of my old videos and just type in like War or WARZILLA or server merge, and you'll see this was back when the game was different. You could fight as an individual. And I remember seeing him take on entire alliances, just him against the throne. And yeah, it was something to watch. He was very good. And anyways, he has lots of opinions. He's been gone from the game for a year, loving it. You know, he touches on all this stuff, like how he's got his life back, how he's not wasting money anymore, that sort of stuff. So thought you guys would like it. I'll just show you one other alliance here. This is BVS, so he'll talk about them. You could see they got some good players here. They're decent, or they were back in the day. And he touches on them a little bit. He had a big war with them for quite a few years. Back when Evony was one player could actually fight. Now you need a whole alliance. You can't do it anymore. It's a team game. The game has changed with all the big buffs, the big war halls, that sort of stuff. And he touches on all that, all the changes. He talks about some historical players and just enjoying life. So anyways, let's get to the interview.
All right, so you remember Pennywise, obviously, right? Do you remember what server he was on?
Yeah, I do. I believe it was server 67.
Okay, so tell us about the legend of Pennywise. What keep level did he finish playing at? How dominant was he, etc.?
I believe it was, God, it's been a while, but I believe it was like K35. He was, one of the best players ever known in Evony. And I've been playing Evony since 2007, from age 1, 2, and obviously King's Return. Now, I had a pretty massive account myself early days in the first few years, and, I spent over 100,000 plus. But that guy, I reckon he'd spent a few million. Just because the packs were so expensive early on, you'd spend like 100 USD and you'd get something like 10 million lumber, 10 million stone and so on. Like, it was just very minimal resources for a lot of money. You got fuck all gems. You're lucky if you got about 100,000 gems, if even that. But no, he when everyone was at spending about 50, 60,000 just to get to about let's say 50 million power, 100 million power, 200 million power. He was he was at 1 billion, 2 billion, 3 billion. He got to 7 billion before the even second, third biggest people in the game were at like 700 million. Now, bear in mind, 700 million power back then, several years ago, you're looking at about $200,000, $300,000, just simply because, as I said, you're farming like level 5 tiles that didn't give many resources. You didn't have all the Queen Jin docks and all the stuff that you could do now. And this guy was just, he was just a god. Everyone just used to, hit him up. I had a few conversations with him in there.
He's Australian, right?
Yeah, he was a good bloke. He had the money. So he there was just no one that can compete with him. He'd go into battlefields and he would just dominate entire lines of solo. I know we have a lot of pack loaders that play now and get their power up, but to be honest, I don't think they're anything compared to what Pennywise was.
I remember when I first started looking at the SVS standings and his server, like they have like the points, right? And it would be like, I don't remember what the points were, but it was something crazy. Like Pennywise's server was first place with like 3 billion points and second place was like 250 million points.
Well, put it this way, I spent over 100,000. It took me, like 6-7 years before I hit 7 billion power? He was at 7 billion power within like 1 year. Like, the dude easily spent $2 to $3 million on his account.
And then he just disappeared, just dismissed everything. He was the first guy to dismiss.
Yeah, they started releasing more like, these dumb updates and, back then you'd wait like 4 or 5 months, maybe 6 months, there'd be some kind of, special event. Obviously now, one of the main reasons why I left is because they release it every fucking week and you just can't keep up, But I know he kept, I don't think there's ever been an alliance in rank 1 as long as Server 67 had been in rank. They were in rank 1 for like a few years, right? He did it all on his own.
Yeah, and it was everything. It was BOG, BOC, and SVS. All three, they were ranked 1. It wasn't even close for second place.
Yeah, that's right. There was no other alliance that could compete with him. No other person. No other account. It just didn't exist. Like I remember, just for fun, he just zeroed his entire server. You know what I mean? He burned down all the keeps. He didn't even leave his own alliance.
That was old. That was old Evony. Everybody just fight their own server and hate each other.
That's right. So he was definitely, a beast to be reckoned with, and I don't think we'll ever see anyone like him. I don't think there's anyone in Evony that's anything even close to what he was.
Did you ever play against him in Battlefield or SVS?
No, and I'm glad that I didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, I've played against some of these other, servers, you got Sir Philip and, I don't know, some other useless accounts below him, like BK Terrible, or shitbox accounts.
When SVS started, could you bubble?
No.
He got to just go destroy people. There was no bubbles, right?
Yeah, and the thing with server versus server back then, it wasn't on the weekend. So it could be sometime during the week. It was like every 13, 14 days. I can't remember exactly how they processed it, but it was every several days. And you couldn't bubble. You could push the throne. So throne wasn't during server versus server. It was if it landed on server versus server, but you could push it out. So what you do is you'd hold the throne for several hours and someone else from an opposing alliance will prevent you from capturing it. And you just kept pushing the timer so that when server versus server came around, there was no hold throning. You know what I mean? And so you couldn't get those extra points and you couldn't just capture someone's enemy throne if they pushed their throne away from server versus server. But he used to get...
you would push your throne so the cycle was out of SVS. It was not open during SVS.
No.
Unlike now in SVS where you just one troop it out.
Obviously now you can't push it out. But back then it was a little bit of a cheat that people could do. People that were obviously afraid of Pennywise, which was pretty much all of Evony. So obviously you could just push it out, but now you can't. But no, he used to get a lot of points. Like I said, it wasn't the way it is now where everyone's hiding under a bubble like a bitch. He'd just go around and he'd tank you. And I remember trying to, because I remember losing 200 million points in one server versus server. And this was early days. And it cost me $3,000-$4,000 just to heal 200 million power. I kid you not. And I remember this guy, Pennywise, he went, I can't remember for the life of me which alliance it was, but I think it was server 145. Was it server 145? No, sorry. I believe it was server 45, right? Server 45, it had, what was his name? Something Weed? Legal Weed was the leader. Anyway, so I know they had a rift between Legal Weed and Pennywise. Anyway, I know Pennywise went and tanked his server, right? And this alliance was pretty good. Legal Weed's alliance was really, really solid. And I remember Pennywise, he just destroyed this alliance. He dropped 3 or 4 billion power on this alliance, right? And within a day, he was fully healed. Now he lost 3-4 billion power. Keep in mind, I remember spending, it cost me about $2,000 to $3,000 just to heal 200 million power. How much did he spend to heal 3 or 4 billion back then? I don't know.
And you guys didn't have souls at the start of SVS, right? You just lost the troops. They're dead.
There was none of that. You permanently lost your troops. Like, they were permanently dead. There was no holy palace. There was none of that. Like, you permanently lost them. Once you lost them, they were gone forever. You got to save some troops, obviously, like in the hospital or whatever, but nothing compared to obviously what it is now. Back then, when troops died, they died for good.
Yeah, you should see it now. Like, I can probably get about around 90% Holy Palace.
I like to think the people that Pennywise zeroed complained to Evony, and hence why the game is the way that it is now.
Which
That's
like now the way the game is, I'm just gonna keep recording because I think it's good. And now the way the game is, it seems like the guys like Pennywise complain and then get their way instead. Like the big spenders now rule the day with Evony.
Sorry, let me correct you there. There is nobody like Pennywise. All you have now is pack loaders that spend a bit of money and then recall their money, and then they claim to be good. They claim they spent 50, 60,000, 10,000, whatever they've spent, but really they've just pack loaded half the money, then refunded it through like iTunes or whatever, and really they haven't spent any money at all.
Yeah, I think there's only a few. There's only a few people out there spending money. I truly believe lots of the big accounts are just sponsored by somebody, like a company promote or Evony. I don't know. I just don't think there's that many people willing to spend this on a mobile game.
Yeah, Pennywise never pack loaded. We never had pack loading back then. Right, we had to wait like a month, maybe 2 months, just to get one of those 7-8 day events. We never had cakes, none of that. All we had was just like when you go to the tab and you want to buy like resources from the top right tab or whatever. We didn't get like all these special events that last 10, 14, 15 days, and you can put those special golden toes. We didn't have any of that, none of that. The remnants of what we had are what you see when you like want to buy VIP points with like gems or whatever, or like just those early on days, like some of the stuff that no one ever buys, no one ever uses. That's what we had early game. And so there was no pack loading. So this guy genuinely spent millions of dollars to get such a beast of an account. I mean, there's people till this day, like, I've seen people in BVS, for example, like this guy quit, 4 years ago? 5 years ago, there are people in like alliances like BVS that like almost 8 years later still haven't even caught up to his account, which is zeroed. He's got a K35 account that's about 100 million power, and there's people in BVS that are still at 80 million power, for example, don't even have the tech that his account had from 4 or 5 years ago, and he didn't even have any of this new gear.
Hey, no one listening to this knows who BVS is. No one.
Yeah, well, they're just the useless alliance that we had in our server. But, I'm from server 68, so obviously I'm from NEF and whatever. But, it was just a little farm alliance that we had. But regardless, I'm just saying as an example, there's alliances out there with people out there that have been playing for several years, and they're yet to even reach the level that his account is currently sitting at for the past 4 or 5 years.
So let's get to the important stuff. How good is it to not be playing this game anymore?
Oh fuck, mate! It is a lot of relief.
You've been gone almost about 10 months or so, right?
Almost a little over,
right about a year. Because I'm on my new server now, and I think that was about the exact time. Like today is 1 year for me on the new server, so it was like right at that time.
Yeah, well, for me, I haven't officially been in the game for a year. I sold my account to another player in the alliance. But no, even prior to that, 6 months prior to selling my account, I kind of stopped playing. The atmosphere was just really becoming toxic. I played Evony when I originally started playing Evony. I played it to have fun with people. Just to have a good time. Let's all have a laugh. Let's all mess around. But then people start getting personal. They start posting photos of like your personal photos, which is kind of sad. And that happened to me. Like I said, that same alliance, BVS, did that sort of stuff to me. And, you know, they didn't do it because, you know, I robbed them for money or something, but they do it for pathetic reasons simply because I burnt down their Alliance City or I zeroed their keep. And, you know, I think people targeting people personally is never okay.
That stuff still goes on. Like, my server is exactly like that. The one I'm on is, oh man, you'd be like, wow, this is just like 2018 in Evony. Yeah. Everyone hates each other.
Yeah. Well, I like to think that, you know, like, this isn't like 5-year-olds playing this game. A lot of these people in this game are like 30, 40, 50, 60-year-olds, you know, like, but everyone's behaving like a kid, you know, like everyone's name calling each other, saying, oh, I fucked your wife, or you fucked my dad, or like just nonsense stuff like that. And not just that, like, you know, you spend all this money. For example, you can be in a really good top-tier alliance. You spend all this money, you're supposed to work together, but then you've got some alliances out there that have people in it, and they only care about a select few of select key people. It's like there's 40, 50 people in this alliance all contributing, all working hard, but then there's like 4 or 5 people in that alliance, and they seem to only be selfish with amongst themselves and not really care about the other people. They just want to take advantage of the people that maybe spend less.
I hear about that in every alliance. There are some new ones. Yeah. There are some new servers that they like team coin together. So they spread it out amongst every keep. Obviously, you still have to have your 1 or 2 star players, but those star players realize there's no point me spending 5,000 on my keep a week. I'll do 2 on mine and spread the rest out on like different keeps.
Yeah, I just don't like...
Which I don't understand. I think that's crazy to spend money on someone else. But, hey, good teammates.
I don't like people that claim to be great at the game. Nothing makes you great. Like, everyone's a person. Like, it really comes down to... It's a coining game. The more you coin, the better you are. You're not physically better, right? You're not emotionally better or mentally better. You just got more money to spend on the game. And what bothers me is, like, fair enough, if you want to be like the legend Pennywise and drop $2-3 million and don't recall that money, yeah, you're a legend. You're cool. You are a beast. But if you're going to, like, pack load and then refund that money and realistically you haven't spent anything, your bank account's actually got $2,000, but you're claiming you spent like $200K on this game, all that money was just you circling your money, the same money that you've been circling for the past year, claiming you're great, but really you're not. You want to be great, spend that money and don't recall it.
Yeah, sometimes I wonder how true that is. Sometimes, like, I used to be in lots of line groups and stuff, and people talk about pack loading and promote it and stuff, and I always felt that some people were just like pretending they did this sort of stuff, like chargebacks and pack loading, because they wanted other people to do it and see if they get caught.
Yeah, well, I remember seeing like speaking to people. I'm not going to name them, but I remember speaking to certain people within my own alliance that did recall the money. And then
but there's no proof they did, right? They just say they did.
Well, no, I remember seeing screenshots of them getting refunds and whatnot. That because I remember being curious. I go, how? Because what I did when I used to coin is I'd get iTunes cards. I just buy iTunes cards. And I'd use the iTunes cards, upload them to my account. Because I never gave my credit card details away. So I just uploaded iTunes cards, and once that money was spent, it was spent forever, sort of thing, you know?
God, I hate this game. Hearing you say that it's spent forever just makes me think, like, I will never get any of this money back. It's so stupid.
Yeah, see, like I said, I spent close to 110,000 plus. I got to pretty much VIP 19. And, yeah, like I said, I'm never getting that money back. All I got back was several $1,000s that I made. I think I sold my account for like 7,000 or 8,000, and that's all I got. Which was like less than 10.8%.
Right before you left, I don't remember the incident. What happened? Something happened, and people did a big charge. Oh, the game got dropped from like Play Store or something. And tons of people did chargebacks that day.
Yeah, so there was an incident, and this is where a lot of people started doing chargebacks. And this is when I first found out about chargebacks, right? So what happened was Evony, I guess they lost their licensing agreement with Apple, and Apple had removed their app from their store. And so now people couldn't log on to Apple and obviously play their accounts. And everyone started doing these dumbass truces so that they couldn't get zeroed, which I think was stupid because I went around just nailing people. I thought it was funny. But the way I see it, we had people in the alliance saying, look, just charge back, you'll be fine. I'm thinking, what do you mean charge back? And then there were certain people, like I said, in the alliance that started showing everyone within the alliance and on the server how to charge back their money. And I'm like, does this even work? They're like, yeah, if you've used your credit card to make the payments and stuff like that, what you do is you email Apple customer support. They'll have a list of all your receipts that you've spent on the game for over the last several months or whatever, and then you can recall all that money because obviously Evony isn't honouring their terms of service. Now, I saw this as a lame excuse because people could just say, well, Evony isn't honouring their game of service for, a server crashing or any other reason. And this is when I started seeing screenshots from people within my alliance that had recorded thousands and thousands of dollars back from Evony, and they told me that this is something that they routinely do. They'll claim all the games crashes or this happens or they're spending money on items that they're not receiving.
Yeah, they're not wrong.
Yeah, just so they can... I know, well, they're not wrong. But the thing is, yeah, sometimes, look, I bought a packet and I didn't get what I paid for, but once I emailed customer support, they'd give it to me. Or sometimes the game would refresh or whatever and I'd end up getting it before I even got around to emailing them. But there was people that were just using it as any kind of excuse to recall it regardless. So even if they did get their stuff, they just recall it regardless. And this is what I found, and this really pushed me away from the game. And I'm thinking, you can't really compete with people that are pack loading, paying in Australia, we pay $160 for a pack, right? So we don't pay 100 USD, we pay 160, which is wrong. Because, and then some people turn around and say, oh, well, that's because of the difference in the dollar value. But no, even when the dollar, when the Australian dollar was the same as the American dollar, we were still paying $160. For some reason, the Asian nations and us people from Asia get charged more for whatever.
Yeah, Canada and UK too. I was paying the same, $169.
Yeah,
it wasn't until... There's this new, Google Play Store and App Store. There's a new one, competing store, and they actually charged a good amount to Canadians. I was only paying $139, which was the foreign exchange difference. But up until that point, I was always paying an extra $30 every one, and it was so annoying. But now I don't spend, so now I pay nothing. So
yeah, it was really frustrating. And so what we used to do is we'd get the iTunes cards because we'd get discounts at Apple stores of 20% off, or sometimes you'd even get 25% off if you bought an iTunes card. And so hence why it worked out for us not using credit cards. Sometimes, we can buy an iTunes, $100 iTunes card and we get it for $75, etc. But now we need to buy two of those $100 iTunes cards just so that we can buy one of those packs, if you get what I mean. Because even though the iTunes cards became a bit cheaper, the money with Evony remained the same. That's just something that we used to be able to do that would help us out. But then a few years ago, they got rid of that. And obviously from then on, it was just simple raw money where we got no discounts whatsoever.
Man, the money with Evony just goes up now. You should see it is ridiculous now.
Especially in Evony, one thing that I learned early on, you've got, I like to call them Evony cougars. You've got women in Evony that will play the game, find the biggest, powerfulest player in the game who spends a lot of money, and they'll try and get into some sort of relationship with them. I don't know how Evony relationships work. I know there's a lot of them out there. I know we had quite a few on my server.
68 had a lot.
They just use, you have women on this game that would use men for money.
Every server is the same though. I don't know about using, I don't know how the financial thing goes if they buy for them or whatnot, but every server is the same. There's people dating.
Yeah, I know there's people dating, but I remember like I said, that we had people on my server that were genuinely using other people just to coin their account for them. They'd pretend to like that person. Now this was before you joined my server, so this was prior to 136 merging with 68. I know we had a few notorious people. They know who they are because I know that they watch your channel. They're subscribers. But
yeah.
Yeah, and they'd use each other just to coin their accounts. They'd pretend to be in love, but really they were just talking shit just so their account would get coined.
Well, they didn't do a good job in a game where you coined to win. They weren't very good players.
No, they weren't really good plays, but, who knows what was happening on the side. I don't really care personally. I just found it hilarious. But, there's no such thing as an Evony relationship. People just need to step away from the game. My advice is delete the game.
How good is it not to have to worry about a bubble, not to have to, worry, if your bot's on, oh my God, it's off, the power's out, I'm missing out on all these reasons. Nothing. You don't got to worry about nothing. It's so good.
Bots is another thing. See, when you joined my server, I didn't even know it. Look, I know in Evony H2 we had bots, and they were far more complicated than the ones that we have here now, obviously, because it was a PC game. So prior to you joining my server, no one on my server knew about bots. There was rumors out there, whispers in the dark, as they say, but no one used bots. I had never used a bot. Like I said, I simply just coined my way up to billions and billions of power. But no, once you joined, I started hearing whispers. And there was a few members that were in my alliance that were using these so-called bots. I remember asking about it, and they denied it. I guess they were keeping it to themselves because they wanted to try and catch up to me and other people like me. Because our server was a lot older, people were a lot larger, a lot stronger, and obviously your alliance at the time was a lot smaller, and the people from your server were a lot smaller. And so they kept this to themselves until they got to about our size, and once they had surpassed us.
Yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, so when we merged with you guys, we were a year and a half old, and you guys were almost 5 years old, and worst. You guys had I remember what was that alliance they're called Lit now, but they used to be something else. They're the fifth. Yeah, but it was named something else. It was the one with Fry or what?
Yeah. It was a retarded alliance.
Yeah, but my point was we were third or second on my server. I wasn't in NEF at the time, and we were scared to even ask any of those alliances to merge with us because we were man, they're eighth biggest player is bigger than our best player because they were so much bigger. It was 800 million, 1 billion. Each alliance had 10 of these players, and we're 200 million, 300 million, and we're they're just gonna say no to us. Why would they want to play with us? And then after 3 months,
That's
we're
right.
oh man, the advantage you have being 4 years older.
Yeah. Well, we did have, like I said, you need to remember we'd been playing for a few years. We had all spent genuine money. We had farmed genuinely. Everything that we earned, our attributes, were all genuine. There wasn't the kind of cheating that's involved in the game now. Now, I understand why people do it now, but I feel the more people cheat, the more Evony keeps bringing out these dumbass events to kind of make up for their losses, if you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
But, look, we were genuine, and you guys joined. I just remember seeing how these guys catching up so much in power. It's not like they're just spending all this money. But eventually I found out about botting, and I didn't really do it at first. I think it was you actually that convinced me. At one point you're hey, what, fuck these guys. Do you want to bot? And I was yeah, teach me the ways of botting. So it was you who actually taught me how to bot.
You can't compete without it. It's just
you couldn't. I couldn't compete with all these.
You should see it now. It's crazy. You go to alliance servers now, a good server, right? Like a server who there's one dominant alliance. They'll have their whole alliance 150. You'll see a rally start, and boom, 140 accounts join immediately. And then if you go look at the other side of the map, there'll be an alt alliance with 100 accounts doing the exact same thing. When you go to a server where one alliance owns the whole thing, it's crazy now.
Yeah, I've recently I've gone into the game just to have a peekaboo, see what's going on. And
no, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't even look. It's a disaster.
Yeah, look, I have no intention of ever coming back to the game, but like I said, I can see where it's heading. And look, K45 has just come out. Give it another year or two and it'll be K50, and then 55, and then 60, and then 65, and then there'll be more fucking generals. The generals will never stop coming, and there'll be generals that have 5% more attack than the current best one, and then it just never ends.
It is
never
like
ends.
so. I got all these generals who were like the best like 10 months ago, and now they're like there's like 5 of each general type better. Every event they release someone new, like 10% better, 15% better.
You just can't. You can't keep up. It's a game designed to just reap your money, and the best thing that your viewers and your thousands and thousands of loyal subscribers can do is either don't coin and play the game, or just delete the game and don't play at all. It's not worth the amount of time that you spend stressing over a bubble, checking your phone every 2 seconds, being paranoid, all that unnecessary, unwanted stress. It ain't worth it, because you're missing out on, what's happening in the real world. I get that there's people that are probably, we had a guy called Lynch in our server, and he lived like a hermit in his house. He never left his house. And the dude, I remember it was his birthday on Christmas. And I said to him, mate, what are you going to do for your birthday on Christmas? He's like, no, nothing much, just play Evony at home. I go, how sad has this world come to if your birthday is on Christmas and you're fucking playing Evony? You know what I mean? Like, go out and get laid or something, you know what I mean? Like, go do something productive with your life. Now, keep in mind, this guy doesn't even coin. But the reality is he had devoted his life to playing this game that it's just, I just don't understand how pointless, why waste your time on a game that's literally designed to just take your money?
Yeah, like one thing I've really noticed about the game, like this trend over the past while, is anything you buy like today, in like 2 months, it's devalued. They add something new and better that just makes all those buffs useless. So like, if there's no point to even coining ever, and like the day you coin is the only day your money actually matters, because in 2 months that's now like 50 cents that you spent.
That's exactly right. Invest your money into, like, I don't know, something smart. Buy some properties or.
What about stock in Evony? Would you buy that?
No.
They have a publicly traded company, eh?
Well, I'm sure it's a shady public traded company.
It's a shell company in New York, right? In the NYSE.
Yeah, well, look, I wouldn't invest any money into Evony. I'll never give them another dollar again. They're just a corrupt company, and they're going to keep stealing people's money. And, it might not be stealing because, obviously it's a grey area where people are giving their money, but the way I see it,
it's predatory.
They're being predators. They're preying on people's emotions. I like, early on in the game, they used to have admins, as we used to call them, and they used to play the game with us. So people that worked for Evony used to play with us. And one thing that they were really good at doing was causing a toxic environment. They'd get people to fight amongst one another for no reason whatsoever, just so that these people would compete against each other financially.
So how would you know they work for Evony? Because people still, like my server is convinced that there's people on the server who work for Evony and create fights.
Okay, so here's a good example. In Evony H2 and Evony H1, admins used to regularly participate in the game with us. So in World Chat, their writing was always pink or red, and it actually said it was admin. Like, so you couldn't add them as a friend. You couldn't do anything. Like, they were literally like just admins in the server that you could you can add whatever them, message them like through like via live World Chat, where you can communicate with them like that, but you can never like add them as a friend or anything. They had accounts. It was admin accounts. It specifically said admin on there with like certain numbers, etc. And then you could email them through that, and then obviously they'd look into your concerns and then they'd get back to you and help you. So they were actively playing the game, because back then, for example, if we had bugs or problems in the game, they'd be physically in the game to be able to see, hey, okay, what's going on. They were also able to monitor the way people were speaking to one another. And
were they Chinese?
Really hey?
Were they Chinese language players?
I'm not sure. They spoke English,
But like it didn't say Chinese and translate.
No, none of that. It was they just spoke in English, and it was admin. And the thing is, I know now people in World Chat can write in all different colors. Back then, you couldn't. So every single person on the game could only write in the regular black writing. That was it. No one could write in special coloured writing. So you knew it was admin because they were the only people that had the coloured writing. And it was always the same. Sometimes it was different admins with different accounts. You couldn't add them to your alliance. I think there was a period of time where they could join your alliance temporarily and just monitor what's going on within the alliance. Like game-wise, you know what I mean? Not so much to participate, more just to monitor like how the game's functioning within the alliance. But yeah, like you knew it was admin because they were the only ones that were able to write that way. Their accounts were a lot different to ours.
Remember that? Who is that big Chinese guy? Bow and arrow H whatever. Was he one?
I'm not sure.
Do you remember who I mean? He was like the 10 billion player when we first merged with you guys.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. I do look, like I said, I know that there are Evony players from the old games that used to play with us. People that work for Evony. In the current Evony, in the first year or two, I know we had a lot of admin from Evony, like staff that used to check on the game. They even told us, like, for example, when we had the chats, you know, so if you had a certain VIP level, they'd invite you to a chat. They even said to us, look, we're in some of your servers. We watch how people play, how people communicate with one another, etc. But in the last few years, look, I haven't really seen anything. To be honest with you, I haven't really paid attention because I haven't been on the game as much. But based off previous experience with Evony, I definitely believe that there are people in Evony who work for Evony that are inside of the game.
So there was a developer call maybe like a week ago. I was in it. And remember the Elena girl who used to run it?
Oh, yeah, okay.
So she's gone or wasn't hosting that one. They had this guy named Quinlan. And he talked a little bit about playing. Like, he's on a server. And I kind of wanted to, like, follow up and be like, hey, what server do you play on? But I know he wouldn't answer. But it sure seemed like he plays the game when he was talking. Yeah. Whereas Elena was lost when answering questions.
You need to remember, right? You don't... Put it this way. The fire department chief, he doesn't go out and put fires, does he? Right, he sits in an office doing whatever paperwork he has to do, shaking a few hands. But how did he become a fire chief? Obviously, once upon a time, he was a firefighter, or, you know, he's participated in whatever involves in firefighting. And my point to that is you can't be a fire chief without having a basic understanding of what firefighting involves. So with Evony, in respects to that, you can't just be an Evony developer without participating or somewhat playing the game. You need to know what the game's about. You need to know what's going on in the game. So I do definitely believe that there are these Evony developers. And I can't look, there are so many developers out there for other games that play their own games. And they have to, because you can't just develop a game and just let it play itself. You've got to be there. You've got to participate, see what's going on. You know, are there things that they can fix?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I know when I make videos for other games, like, they're not as good as my Evony videos because I'm just not playing it as much. Like, I don't know what's going on. I'm trying my best. I'm playing. I'm trying to learn the game because I put so much time into Evony. I can't learn the other games as well.
Yeah. I do believe that there are some very big accounts in Evony that are probably created by Evony intentionally just to get people to compete against those accounts. I also know from my personal experience, like early on in the game, when you spend a lot of money on Evony, they will contact you. They will contact you and on a personal level.
Well, that's what those developer calls are. Like, it's high VIPs. There ain't no VIP 11 in there.
Obviously now it's groups of people. But you need to remember, when I started playing the game, for the first 3 or 4 years, we only had like 70 plus servers. You know, one server was released once a month. Now you have servers released once a week, if not more. So we only had a small amount of servers, so there was only a small group of people. We didn't have these like massive, you know, live Evony chats with like groups of people. They'd speak to you independently, and they'd ask you, look, what can we do to improve the game for you? How can we contribute to your spending, and how can we help you out and stuff like that? And I remember thinking to myself, why are you even emailing me? Like, why are you messaging me? Like, I'll spend my money the way that I want to, if I want to, sort of thing. But I'm sure there was other people that took the initiative.
Well, one thing that gets me is like how competitive this game is, and there's massive players. Like some of the biggest ones in Evony, they don't talk at all ever. And like they have an account that is probably worth like $750,000, or like what they spent. It's worth probably now like $3,000. But these people aren't bragging. They aren't in groups being like, "Yo, look at how good I am." It's like, you know what I mean? Like to me, that's like a big thing. It's like, are they using their own money? Because if they were, then they'd want to tell people how good they are.
Yeah, I think if you're the way I see it, right? Look at all these famous people, right? That have, like, just people in general that have a lot of money. They like to flash what they have, right? They like to flash their, car, their house, whatever, They'd like to flash it, right? There are people that have a lot of money and do like their privacy. But the reality is when you look at the odds of how many people have money, how many of those people like to flash it compared to the people that don't, the odds of the people that like to flash their Ferrari or whatever are higher than the people that don't.
Oh,
right?
big time.
A lot of, you know what I mean? Put it this way.
That's why it's so curious to me when these people are such massively coined accounts and they're nowhere to be found to talk.
All these massively coined accounts, and none of them are flashing. It makes no sense how you've got a higher percentage of people that have all this money that they're spending, but they're not flashing. Yet in today's society, people that have lots of money and like to spend it, they like to flash. So it just doesn't make sense how the ones that don't flash outweigh the ones that like to flash. That makes no sense to me. The other thing that makes no sense to me is people that have a lot of money, like a lot of money. Bill Gates, for example, he drives around in a Toyota Camry. He doesn't go spending his money on useless, stupid things. So if you've got a lot of money, why would you spend all that money on something stupid and useless like Evony? Why not spend it on something like an investment? So I do not believe that people that have a lot of money...
You don't think Bill Gates is at these secret society parties telling people about his 3,800% attack?
Yeah, that's right. I just fail to believe that anybody really gives a fuck that you've got 3,800% attack. I've got a big fist in real life,
I think the only guy bragging about Evony at parties is... what's the CEO's name? Like David Gu or whatever his name is? I think he's at parties laughing at all the players.
Yeah.
You should see these stupid idiots spending billions on my game.
That's right.
Next week I will put a diamond crust around the shield. And they will all spend $2,000 for it.
The game is designed to cause chaos. It's built off people's emotions.
Yeah, it's a gambling addict game. Like this game is just gambling psychology 101.
That's right. It's a form of gambling. You sent me a video on YouTube once before about luring whales and how they'd get that, for example, the Saudi sheikh to go up again. They emotionally fuck with people to cause people to spend, right? And that's what I hate about this game. They cause so much negativity intentionally. Like they'll intentionally cause negativity. They'll create an account to cause drama and to cause people to fight with their emotions in order for people to now spend to defeat the other player. Because they know if they burn that other person's keep, that person's going to get upset. I mean, look how upset people get when they forget to bubble.
Man, you don't even have to burn someone's keep. All you have to do is go on World Chat and be like, hey man, remember when you got burned by so-and-so like 6 months ago? And people just lose it.
Yeah, and look, I remember when, for example, that white mamba retard that was on my server, I remember zeroing him like several times, like over a few years. And he always said that he'd zero me, but he never did. The dude went and spent a lot of money, and he never got the opportunity to zero me. But boy, did I, give him an ass beating. He got an old-fashioned Australian ass whooping. And he never got the chance. And,
that was one of my biggest regrets in my old keep was I tell people this all the time, like, I always played like, oh, when I get T13s, that guy's dead. Then I'd get 13s. It'd be like,
Yeah.
oh, when I get 14s, oh, now I just got to get the shrine up. So it's always something new that I wouldn't get revenge because I didn't want to wreck my city. And now I'm just like, fuck this. Do it now.
Yeah,
It'll feel good.
the
It's a
best thing
fucking
people
game.
can
Who
do-
cares?
The best thing that people can do is just quit the game and go spend time with their family. The game is toxic. It's designed to be toxic in order for you to spend. That's it. There's so many games out there that you can play that are just like this that are free. They don't even ask you for
Yeah,
money.
like I'm playing this other one now. It's kind of like Clash of Clans, Call of Dragons, almost the same. You don't have to spend anything.
Yeah.
Nothing. I can turn it off. 2 days, go back. No one's attacked me. All my stuff's there. No problem.
Yeah. The game causes a lot of problems in real life as well. You can't focus on your work. It causes relationship problems. Like I know my partner would always be like, "Get off that stupid game," Fuck, we're meant to go out, and here I'm running late to go out to the movies or fuck go out to dinner because I've got to wait an extra 8 minutes for my march to come back or whatever, so that I can bubble. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, and then when that march is back,
it's your
the,
real
the next
life.
one's back in just 45 seconds. So you might as well wait for that one too.
Yeah. So there's always something, and I remember it's like, oh, just 5 minutes, and 4 hours later. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's just how it was.
Man, yeah.
Especially if you're protecting the throne, you've got to step
Throne's the worst. And anyone out there who like if you're a small player and you just want to piss off someone who has throne, you just take the catapults. Just take the catapults. Don't even worry about the throne. Just fuck them with that. When people do that to me, it's like, oh, fuck you.
Yeah, no, definitely. It was always tough, having to stay up for several hours, and we'd have people snoring on the phone. It's like, dude, fuck, it's bad enough that I've got to sit here for 6 hours. I don't have to listen to you snore. But no, look, we had fun times, but no, look, I think the first few years in Evony were amazing.
Yeah, it's nothing like that now.
Now
Because now it's like, oh, my account's so valuable, I can't do anything to risk it. Where before it was actually like a war game. I hate this guy. I'm just going to attack. Who cares?
Yeah, it was a lot easier.
It was like impulsive before, and now it's like a business. Like it's so thought out. Like I can't wreck my account because I want to play in this fake simulated attack called Battlefield, and I want my account to be really good for that.
Yeah, that's right. And it was much easier healing 200 million power or 300 million power compared to healing 30 billion power now. I mean, I've seen the dumb ads on fucking Facebook. I don't even know how I'm getting these ads, but I'm seeing them where they've got some dumb blonde bimbo dressed in a short skirt saying, "Oh, I'll only date you if you have 500 million power." I'm like, what the fuck? No one knows. If I go up to a girl right now, if I tell her I have 500 million power and Evony, she's going to look at me and say, what the fuck is wrong with you? What is that?
Well, she might laugh, and it might be a good introduction, but you got to have some game after that.
Maybe. I don't know. I just think people need to delete the game. It's a toxic game.
So, cut that interview honestly just 10 seconds short. I should have left it running. I stopped it because, we were just talking about the same things over and over. But at the very end, right after I hit the end button, he said something along the lines of, one thing I really think about when I play the game and now that I'm done is all the time I missed with people, right? Like no one's going to be sitting there saying, "Oh, you know what wish I had instead of more time with my kids when they were 1 and 2 and 3 years old and nice young age and hanging out with them. I wish I could have just spent more time on Evony." Right? Like that's the thing. Like this game just sucks away your time and it makes you put you divide your time. Even if you're there with the family members and your friends, you're not there because you're thinking about the game, you're pulling your phone out, looking to join a rally, looking to see if there's a bubble down, that sort of stuff. So I thought he really touched on a lot of important stuff there and hope you guys liked it. And leave some comments in the section for WARZILLA. Like, subscribe, leave a comment.